I mean, when it was fast paced and you're missing planes and you're just like not caring and you're trashing things, and you've got in a lot of trouble, heaps of trouble.
Is that just because, you know, you'd got so much fame so quickly out of these hits? And
No, I think you're just really drunk.
That's Ilan Kidron. He's an ARIA award-winning singer-songwriter responsible for writing hit anthems for Aussie dance music pioneers, the Potbelleez, and plenty of tracks for big-name artists.
The Social Experiment with Chance the Rapper, and then Rita Ora and Kygo and all these guys, Chris Brown.
Ilan has lived the dream, enjoying an action-packed life on the road for many years that's brought him great success, but he's also had to endure immeasurable pain. Ilan's wife took her own life in 2017, leaving he and his 2 children to pick up the pieces.
That's probably the hardest bit, is not being able to answer the questions that are impossible to answer. What could I have done? Why did I do this? What were the last, few hours of her life like? All these things that are just so torturous.
Coping with such trauma while being a father has been confusing and unimaginably difficult for Ilan, but despite it all, he still focuses on all the good in the world, passionately living a full life with the belief that nothing is impossible.
I think it's a good sign to show people beauty can come from horror and things like that. And there's ways to work through life that make you stronger and make you better.
welcome to Youngblood, a podcast all about young men's health. My name's Callum McPherson, I'm a journalist, and this is our mission to talk about the stuff that matters and isn't talked about enough. Let's do it. So Ilan, where does your love of music come from?
Great question. I think we probably, one of the first things that happened to us is we hear our mother's heartbeat. If you want to get deep, in there, and there's a rhythm to it. Me personally, I was introduced to music very early on. My parents kind of forced me into doing it until I was about 15, 16. And then I just decided that I liked it. So I did it on my own. They made me learn the flute, which I hated, which I thought was, a very effeminate kind of choice. But it turned out that girls actually liked guys that played flute. So
really? I wasn't aware of that.
It was like a point of difference. It's like
that was your sensitive side. You're making that really apparent.
Like that. Yeah, something like that. And then anyway, it continued, throughout. I was introduced to music from other cultures at a very young age, classical music, and just through the fortunate kind of, my parents introducing and kind of making, treating music like it was as important as any other subject, like maths or science or anything.
Were they musicians as well?
No, but super artistic. Like dad's an architect, mum's a teacher, but they never got that kind of opportunity to express themselves. So I guess they pushed me and my brother into it. My brother's a good musician as well. He's got crazy ears. He can hear things and just play it.
What power have you been able to draw from music throughout your life?
Gee, these are strong questions. It's been, music, if you want to get kind of poetic about it, it's been a mirror in a big way. You become better at your awareness and how you're feeling. It's the opposite of an iPhone. Your iPhone, you think that there's this true reflection coming back and that you're, constantly feeding off, whatever's there. But music, you have to really trust and throw yourself into the power of it. I guess, the more you work at it, it's like anything. I mean, you look like you exercise, and the more you exercise, the more gains you have. And with music, it's the same thing. And there's no limit. There's just no limit as to what you can learn and how you can communicate. The main one is, and that I struggle with still, is the listening part. I can listen when I'm jamming and I love it. I love being aware of what's going on. But in conversations, I'm very activated. So I'll cut people off and things like that. And that's something that music can teach you, is to not cut off and just exist within a world together. So the power of music is, although it's fantastically wonderful when you're on your own and you're able to compose and write, it's also just unbelievably strong when you're doing it with other people. And I love it. I love the jam.
And when did you realize that you could make a career out of it?
It just kind of slowly happened. Like I didn't make a career out of it until I was 28, 30. So it was quite late-ish because I was doing other things. I was working cafes. I was busy going to castings and doing, as an actor, doing commercials. Yep. It was weird. I'm a terrible actor as well. I can't hold a straight face, but for some reason I was this kind of animated dude that could sell pizza.
They love it.
I had a great time doing it. I toured. I went away and did was in the Cook Islands. I did a commercial for an English insurance company. I went to Malaysia and did a Pepsi commercial all over Australia. I was in Home and Away a couple of episodes as well.
Did you have any lines?
Heaps of lines. I wasn't an extra.
All right. Well, that pays pretty well. So
I was the hero. It paid really well. It was amazing. I did it throughout uni. That's what I did.
Okay, nice. So you've always been a performer in some respect.
And craving that connection with people.
Yeah.
You know, wanting the bounce, wanting the ego filled and wanting, but also kind of in a, not a sexually seductive way, but in a personality kind of seductive way, wanting to draw people in, understand me and allow them to understand themselves.
And did you write music the whole way through, or were you just like playing instruments, or have you always written songs?
I remember writing really bad songs.
Love songs?
No, angry songs.
Yeah,
I loved like Soundgarden and punk and Nirvana and whatever. I grew up on the grunge. So no, there weren't many loves. Oh no, there were love songs as well. But mainly.
Did you think they were good at the time?
Yeah. And I showed them off and I don't think I got much response. And then, you know, we had cassette players, so I'd record them on cassette and listen back. Now I still got some of them and they're just...
Shit, back in the day.
Can't listen to them. My grandma likes them though.
What was the first song that you wrote for another artist?
Well, I guess, you know, when I sat down with the Potbelleez and we wrote a song called Dirty Dreams, I wasn't thinking that it was my song. They were like guiding the whole session. They just wanted dance tracks. And I hated dance music at the time. I didn't understand house music or anything. I was more of a kind of rocky, jazzy dude who loved 60s music and 70s music and classical stuff and smoked weed and just wanted, you know, I wasn't into the whole club scene at all.
Yeah, you just wanted to chill.
Chill or just make music that was kind of a bit more intellectual or whatever.
Yeah.
But you find ways of communicating that don't need to be so thought out and intellectual, but they can come from a really pure, real, raw kind of state. And that's what we were doing in the Potbelleez. We were taking some of the information that I'd learned and then just putting it through and writing songs that were kind of like a weird mix, you know, of dance music and grunge, I guess.
Because you were part of writing some of their biggest hits, weren't you?
I wrote all the hits, yeah.
How did you come to meet those guys?
In a club. I just got up and started singing with them at some point. And then within 2 weeks, we wrote our biggest hit, Don't Hold Back. And then we were constantly, like that went triple platinum. And then you know, like the next few songs did well. Like we got gold records and more platinum records and everything, but it never quite, it was ridiculous.
You set the standard too high.
But I'm happy to say we weren't one-hit wonders, but it was pretty ridiculous what happened. It was basically, I always describe it as a shotgun wedding. Like I met these two dudes.
Yeah.
It could have been in Vegas.
And then overnight. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're married, living with each other for the next 12 years. You know, and just going through everything that a married couple probably would.
And so is that how long you guys were traveling? And
it's about 12 now, but we were trucking for about 8.
Wow.
So heavy.
Like just on the road most of the time?
On the road 3 days a week on average, I'd say. For 8 years.
Far out. Gosh. And so what was that experience like? Where did that take you?
Roller coastering, you know, up and down. The hardest part, I guess, was for the people who weren't on the road.
Yeah.
You know, people like family or, you know, you'd come back from this spaceship experience every week and try and land it and get on the same wavelength as who you're supposed to be living with, but your family becomes like this, I guess, a luxury of some sort. It's not your life, and your life split, I guess.
And what was it like for you being part of of that world, not just with the Potbelleez, but I suppose being in the music industry throughout, and because it's sort of
I've been
extraordinary.
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I mean, I've got really good friends there as well still, and because you know, in order to push through, write music that people can relate to and do important like things like get smashed and make people have a really good time. you tend to meet people who are in it for the right reasons as well. You obviously come by a lot of cowboys and people who aren't in it for the right reasons, but they sort of get pushed to the side. You're not really interested in working with them too much. Like if I get in a room with an artist and I'm writing a song with them and I have a beautiful day, which by the way is by far the most important reason I write, is to have a good experience, not to write a brilliant song.
And if you're making music for people to get smashed and have a good time too, you're probably getting smashed and having a good time a fair bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But after a few years of it, it wears super thin.
Yeah.
It like means nothing. And
and like pretty taxing on your mind and your body as well.
I was like, yeah, on the mind certainly, on the body like as well. But I was the one in the band who was always waking up early and doing stuff, surfing and going for a jog.
And I guess like the rest of the crew would all be hungover, and then they'd be like,
they would wake up.
Where's Ilan? And he'd be like, oh, he's off at some yoga class again.
Who knows? Yeah. But I'd also meet like the soundies, often the crew when you're touring around regional around the coast. The soundies will often be surfers and be able to lend you a wetsuit or whatever, and you go out surfing and meet, people along the way. Incredible. So it's not just about the music and the live element. It's about relationships and building things.
So for you, did it feel like it was fast-paced and high pressure, or it didn't really trouble you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah. I mean, when it was fast-paced and you're missing planes and you're just like not caring and you're trashing things, and we've gotten in a lot of trouble, heaps of trouble.
What did you do?
We were kind of arrogant and just silly. We'd get these huge corporate gigs and just make a mockery of them. We did this one for this umbrella group of advertising agencies, and we just lost our minds on stage.
Right.
Started just calling them wankers and yuppies, which they weren't. I mean, they're just doing their job and they're there. Some of them indeed probably are, but, we were the ones that were actually behaving like tossers.
Yeah.
But you just don't realise.
And is that just because, you'd got so much sort of fame so quickly out of these hits? And
no, I think you're just really drunk.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And music is propelling you there. Well, it ends up exploding on stage in ways that you can't really control sometimes.
Yeah, okay. But
our music is super suited to ads, as with like, the Don't Hold Back campaign for Jeep and things like that. So we did write music that people relate to and that kind of can adhere to a product of sort, but we never sought that kind of stuff. We never sat down and went, will this fit on a car commercial? But we did sometimes sit down and go and ask ourselves whether it had the G-force. We used to call it the G-force, the girls and the grannies and gays. Will it fit within that framework, this song?
Uh-huh.
And if it didn't, if it was lacking two of them, we wouldn't release it.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Because we didn't chase the tough audience. We weren't after the whole heavy bounce Melbourne scene or what the presets were doing. We just wanted to write fun stuff and that kind of connect to the heart more than anything.
Well, you definitely did that. I just remember Potbelleez being absolutely massive and one of those groups that like everyone liked, which is pretty rare.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, unless they knew you by the sounds of things.
Oh, no, it was lovely, man. It was just on the occasion that we kind of blew up in people's faces. No, not at all. I don't think we behaved like...
Yeah, but I mean, you guys are making hit dance music. It's kind of to be expected, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What about the instability, though, of that lifestyle and, being on the road all the time and then being away from family and that sort of things? Did that wear on you?
Yeah, certainly. It wore on me, it wore on my family, and it wore on the members of the band. When you're together for a long time and there's substance abuse or there's there's late nights continuously, you're losing sleep, you're losing, focus. Everything is, you see shocking examples of it in people like Avicii, or, there's people fall by the wayside. Good friends have, ended their lives, or, my wife as well ended hers. But that's, every situation, I guess, is very different. You can't draw all of it into one thing. Oh, that's because, you were on the road, or, you weren't around your family enough. But life does get confusing when you don't have regularity. I mean, it's the same for kids. You want to bring up kids going to sleep at the same time. You want them going to the same school every day. I think the same exists for adults. I mean, there's a good reason why, it must go back to being cavemen and hunting. You get that routine, you train, and you get better at what you're doing. And when you're doing so many things and you're fucking yourself up a lot, well, you're borrowing from tomorrow.
Exactly. So there's that, that burning the candle at both ends sort of a thing that can only last for so long. What ways did you sort of struggle with that in?
I think genuinely I'm pretty good and resilient, and I've got good support around me to be able to go through life quite happy, and despite, shocking things that might happen, be able to look at the sky and see it as blue when it's blue. And I don't have, that dispense to, see things other than what they are. I've always used meditation, and like from a very young age, exercising the mind, sharpening the mind. But, can't help it when things fall down. Sometimes things are out of your control.
Did you have a point where you're like, all right, boys, we need to stop touring for a while and get some structure?
Definitely. Yeah. But everyone has a break into it. No one tours continuously. Yeah, definitely. And we had a great manager who was, the management thing's so tricky, because you're a babysitter as well as booking flights and doing all that sort of stuff. It's a really tricky job, especially when you're dealing with three personalities that are really different. I think we did well though. I mean, despite.
So 8 years you were doing that full on. So when did that wrap up?
Well, in the middle of it, I moved to France for 6 months for a holiday kind of thing. But again, things come up, opportunities come up with money or whatever, and you get pulled away again. And then I moved to LA for 3 years. So that's when it sort of quieted down. And then when I came back, we started touring again a little bit. So it was a little bit on and off. It wasn't just like this constant 8 years thing. But the thing is about the Potbelleez that was interesting is that we could go to any club anywhere in Australia on a Friday and Saturday night and almost sell out. It wouldn't matter throughout the year. So what we ended up doing, it wasn't like the Potbelleez would do a tour that lasted for 2 months. It was just constant.
Yeah. It was just like wherever you could rock up, you'd just be like, right, we're gonna play here. People are gonna come.
Ready to go.
Yeah. And were you writing songs for other artists and doing other music at the same time?
Yeah, that's right. So after, the success of the first couple of songs that we did, I started working with great artists like Jessica Mauboy, just like once Tim O'Matic and Guy Sebastian, and, whoever was there. I was called in as a gun for hire. Remember this great songwriting duo that are signed to Sony called DNA. Don't know if you know them, but they've written like 3/4 of the hits that you hear. Delta, Jessica Mauboy, and then they called me in to work with Ricky Martin, and we worked with Ricky Martin while he was here for The Voice. Wrote big kind of exciting tracks that did well, that you start getting recognition for. And then moving to LA was really exciting, working with the crew. The Social Experiment with Chance the Rapper, and then Rita Ora and Kygo and all these great, Chris Brown, and you just never know who. But for the most part, you're in a room with writers, and you're working with producers that work with the artists, sort of thing. So it's not. So me personally, I didn't get to the point where like Sia or anything like that, where they're being called in and the artists are working directly with them.
Yeah.
But the artist would come in later once the song was kind of 90% done and put their kind of little touch to it.
Awesome. That must have been cool seeing those artists, bring what you've written to life. That must have been like a real joy to sort of see that.
It's amazing. It's a thrill. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And what brought you and your wife together?
Languages. I studied language at university. I met her there. And theatre. We met in a theatre production.
How long were you guys together, or was that?
Together 21 years.
And when did your kids come onto the scene?
Well, Sammy had a child, Remy, first, and he was 3 when I met Sammy, and then Gabe is now 18.
With your relationship with her, was it clear to you that she was struggling, or at certain times, or did she hide it?
Yeah, I mean, we were very communicative. We spoke about things very openly. I think we had a great understanding, but that absence as well, and that insecurity, I guess, that's fostered when, you don't have that time together consistently. I'd go, especially living in LA was tricky because we had a mortgage over there and the money was really coming from live gigs and from publishing, but the publishing was it's always inconsistent. Once Spotify took over and the streaming system came in, the money drops, obviously. So I had to, work. I had to do gigs. And I'd be home for 2 weeks and then leave for 3 weeks and then home for a week, then leave for a month and then come home for 3 weeks. And so that inconsistency about me being in LA while people would be like, oh, let's get Ilan in. Oh, he's not here in Australia. The whole career as a writer in LA kind of dwindles a little bit too. You don't get called up as much, obviously because you're not there. And yeah, Sammy was left in LA with our son, who's amazing. He's 18 now. He's a wonderful kid. And that brought its own pressures, and Sammy stopped sleeping consistently, and that brought on, some pretty heavy things.
And you obviously would have been aware that was happening while you were having to be pulled away here and there and be apart.
Kind of, but not till it was really too late, really. Yeah, and a mania kind of sits in, and yeah, it's complicated. It's a complicated one to talk about as well.
And so, what was that like for you when you were having to, go away and make the money, but you're also having to be apart from your family? And what sort of pressure did that put on you?
A lot of pressure, just a lot of pressure, and also being a dad was tricky as well. I think it's something that is not rare when it comes to any father or mother that needs to go away to work. I'd stopped drinking and being, loose by then anyway. I'd kind of grown out of it, so I was a bit of a fit boy, so I was able to handle it a lot better. Yeah.
And then tragically, of course, she passed away. I think most people couldn't imagine being in that position, especially when you've got young children to look after as well. What did you do?
It's just moment by moment. You're there. Just grief is weird because it's not every day is very different. You're waking up in this kind of butterfly existence that's shaky, that sometimes lasts all day and then sometimes it abates. And then slowly, what happens is in your mind, the thoughts of it kind of just become less and less and less over time, but it can just strike you at any moment, and I cry a lot, I let it out. I let it out with people as well. And
yeah, I can't quite imagine it being your wife and your partner, but I lost a friend to suicide, so I understand the feeling of it sort of coming in waves where initially it's very overwhelming and overpowering, and then over time sort of just washes over you out of nowhere, and you find yourself getting very upset, and then you might go a longer period of time without thinking about it, and something will sort of trigger you.
I think washing over is a really good way to put it, but you also learn how to ride it as well. If there are waves, you learn how to ride it, and actually it's those feelings, I don't want to lose them either. Like, that's the strange thing about it. I don't want to lose that grief. I want to hold on to it because it makes me feel close to Sammy. The other thing I'd say, I follow the Red Hand Files that Nick Cave writes. He writes this really cool, I suggest anyone out there to subscribe to it. It's really great. You should definitely subscribe to it, Callum, because people write in letters and he answers them, and Nico tragically lost his son to an accident. And he puts it really well when he says that, it wasn't no amount of words that people kind of share with you can fill a hole, or nor do they make sense. So when someone says, oh, she'll live on in your heart, it means nothing. I mean, it's just like it just makes no sense. So what I kind of have done, I think, is create an imaginary version of her sometimes that I can talk to or ask questions to. And sometimes I hear my reflection of her answer back, so it's like,
because you knew her so well, what she would have said.
Maybe, I don't know how it happens, but there are inner dialogues, that happen, and I've actually somehow created an imaginary version of her that, who knows, indeed might be her speaking through it, but you just don't know.
And I guess, we all have to cope with things in different ways, and especially things that are so horrendous. And what about just the element of you having to be a father at that time as well?
A father and a friend, and somehow trying to wade through what is the questions that can't be answered. Because as a father, you want to solve problems, right? You certainly don't want to create them, and you want to make things better. You want to heal your kids, but that's probably the hardest bit, is not being able to answer the questions that are impossible to answer. What could I have done? Why did I do this? What were the last, few hours of her life like? All these things that are just so torturous, and they have the same thoughts. It's only natural. And by the way, we have apparently about 30,000 thoughts each a day. So I can never know, exactly. You can never know someone actually is what it is, exactly how they are. But I think they're doing it great. I'm super proud of him. My kid's just finished his HSC, done well, and next year is going to be full of adventures, and then hopefully go to uni. And I think he's on a great road. I think Sammy would be super proud of what we're doing, and and I'm filling my life with meaning, and releasing this new song, Nothing Is Impossible, for a purpose rather than just like a kind of ego scratch. This is my latest invention. Have a listen. Yeah. Hopefully get, 1 million streams. Great. But, doing stuff like what I'm doing, working with, institutions that try and improve disabled people's lives, or, and the elderly. I've just started a website as well over COVID, which is full of content for the elderly who are trapped in their houses all around the world. So it's been good. Find ways to reinvent and find meaning.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, how has going through all this changed you?
You learn that the most important part of things is for you to kind of forgive yourself for lots of things. Not, you can never have the love of everyone. A situation like this, when someone suicides, it tends to split the family up massively. You have to keep it within context that it's like an earthquake. First, there's the big shock of it all, and then there's lots of little aftershocks that kind of just inevitably people look to blame, or people look within themselves to blame them, and it's just really fucked up, really strange. And out of that, you grow a warmth, I think, and you could go either way. For me, I've looked for purpose, and I've looked for, every year now we raise money in Sammy's name. We raise $5,000 for the Charlie Teo Foundation this year. We'll do it again next year. I think it's a good sign to show people beauty can come from horror and things like that. And there's, ways to work through life that make you stronger and make you better.
Beautifully well said. That's very powerful. And what about your music? Obviously, you wrote an album during that grieving process that's going to be coming out pretty soon.
It's been wonderful focusing on something that doesn't include two other artists, like in the Potbelleez. It's been really something that I've really wanted to do. come from so many different genres, I guess, or schools of music that I like to delve into: world music and jazz and classical and rock and pop and all this stuff. So it's all kind of mixed into this. I think it's quite heartfelt and emotional journey. It's called Chaos and the Nightingale. So it's been good to work with a few key people in my life that are there, like, who've been on the journey with me as well. So
what's the power of music as a healing mechanism?
It's definitely a balm, for sure, if that's what you're asking. I mean, music, I find when I'm writing the music or doing it, I don't have those emotionally explosive moments that you have when you're actually listening to someone else's song that resonates. When I'm working on music, I mean, it's rare that I'll write something and go, oh my God, it's me there. You know, like that. It's more like listening to other artists or music that we used to listen to that conjure up beautiful memories or whatever. So emotionally, it's strengthening, if anything.
But I suppose you create those moments or those reactions for other people that you might not even know about as well.
I mean, we still get great, amazing messages through the Potbelleez on our Insta or wherever that, you know, thanks so much. You pulled me out of some dark places, or I proposed to my wife singing your song, or our wedding waltz was this, or whatever. And you become a part of people's lives.
How are you seeing things now?
Softer, challenging though as well throughout this period, you know, of being, you know, more isolation. It's given us a chance to, you know, get closer here, but also just feel lucky that we live in Australia. I'm stoked. Spend most mornings down at the beach, just on my own or with some lads. And then, you know, throughout the day I'll have, you know, songwriters come around or just people who I'm working with project-wise. Yeah. Exciting times. It's good.
And is that really the stuff that's kept you going? Because it sounds like you've got quite a full life.
Very full life. Things that have kept me going is, you know, my son's a super inspiration. I've got a lovely girlfriend who's very kind and, again, soft. She's an amazing person to live with. There's times when I'm really angry and, you know, can't understand what's going on and I lose it. But
yeah, I think you're human, aren't you?
Human. Yeah. And I think routines definitely help me a lot. Like, not being on the road is amazing. I would not want to do that now. And I guess that's why, you know, labels, they love signing really, really young acts because they're ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, they want to find 18 to 22-year-olds that they can put on the road for 10 years. And
so your new music, you've got a new single out now, and then you've got your new album coming out early next year.
Yeah. So Nothing Is Impossible is by a secret little band that I muck around with called Glassbreakers. And that's in collaboration with an amazing charity called the Choice Foundation, who fund other charities that help disabled people find work, all sorts of programs. Unreal. In fact, tonight we're doing a little party that'll be streamed live, I think. I don't know when this is going to be airing, but yeah. I think that it's really important. I found myself watching a show called Camp Crip or Crip Camp. And I found myself laughing at the wrong moments. It was just wrong, all wrong. So I wanted to do a bit of investigation. I found some people during COVID, some people who were involved in that, and I wanted to explore why I was having these emotions. And then through that, I realised just how many unsung heroes there are in that community, parents that just, you can't believe what they go through every day, or the people themselves that live with disabilities. What you want to do, you want to highlight their abilities as opposed to their disabilities, because they're all very able in more ways than one, you know, to, you know, express themselves, to go through life, adding to the world and not just sapping it because of their disabilities. It's just still atrocious at how we react to it, you know.
So, it's great that you had that self-reflection and then actually took that forward to to want to find out about it and do something with it.
Yeah.
Wow, you seem like a really good-hearted person, and it's been a pleasure.
Appreciate that, Callum.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Thank
you also for opening up about that, because incredibly difficult to talk about, especially in a public forum. So I just want to thank you for being brave enough to do that.
One thing that I would say just before we leave, an important thing I've learned, that if you do see signs that there might be an impending kind of dangerous thing about to happen, that act on it. Don't wait. And even if it's the fourth time, just take it seriously, and you can do things, not just with words, obviously with actions, and it does count.
If you're a fan of the work we're doing or have a suggestion for the show, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment. You can follow Youngblood Men's Health Matters on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, and visit our website youngbloodmedia.com.au to stay up to date. And most importantly, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone you love and start a conversation of your own. A huge thank you to our local business supporters who've joined our mission to change the lives of young men for the better and help make this possible. We're all in it together. This is Youngblood. Thanks for being part of the mission. Catch you next time.